Some of the most horrifying stories don't happen in haunted houses or deep forests. They happen under harsh fluorescent lights, in gas stations you never want to remember, places that seem so normal during the day, so mundane, but when the sun sets, they take on a different life. They become havens for the strange, the desperate, and the downright terrifying. These are 3 true gas station horror stories, sent in by people who barely made it out. Our first story takes us to a desolate stretch of highway in West Texas, where truck stops and gas stations are lifelines in a sea of darkness. Our submitter, let's call her Sarah, found herself stranded at one such station after her car broke. Our next story comes from a small town in the heartland of America, a place where everyone knows their neighbor and the biggest worry used to be the annual pie contest. That is, until the strange occurrences at the local gas station began. Our submitter, we'll call him David, worked the graveyard shift at the only gas station for miles around. It was a quiet job, usually just him and the occasional trucker passing through. One night, however, the silence was broken by a series of unsettling events. It started subtly. The temperature inside the store, usually kept comfortably cool, began to drop. At first David thought nothing of it, assuming it was just the old air conditioner acting up. But as the night wore on, the cold intensified, becoming almost unbearable. He pulled on his jacket, but it provided little comfort against the unnatural chill. Then, the freezer door began to open. It happened slowly at first, the heavy metal door groaning as if pushed by an unseen hand. David, assuming he hadn't closed it properly, got up to check. He made sure the door was tightly shut, even giving it an extra tug for good measure. But minutes later, it would slowly creak open again. A shiver ran down David's spine. He'd worked at the gas station for years and the freezer had never acted up before. He tried to rationalize it, blaming a faulty latch or a draft, but deep down, a knot of unease began to form in his stomach. He tried ignoring it, focusing on his tasks. But the relentless cold and the eerie, rhythmic opening of the freezer door chipped away at his composure. He began to feel like he was being watched, his every move scrutinized by unseen eyes. The air grew thick with an oppressive, almost tangible presence. The shadows in the corners of the store seemed to deepen, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. The fluorescent lights, usually a comforting beacon in the darkness, now flickered ominously, casting an unsettling, sickly pallor over everything. One particularly frigid gust of air sent a chill right through him, and that's when he saw it, a faint outline of a figure, barely discernible in the shadows at the back of the walk-in freezer. It was tall and skeletal, with long, wispy fingers that seemed to reach out from the darkness. David stood paralyzed, his breath catching in his throat, as the figure seemed to shimmer and sway, as if beckoning him closer. Terror, raw and primal, surged through him. He stumbled back, knocking over a display of candy bars in his haste. The loud clatter seemed to shatter the spectral vision, and the figure vanished as quickly as it had appeared. David, shaken to his core, didn't wait around to see if it would return. He grabbed his coat, fumbled with the lock on the door, and fled into the night. The memory of the chilling cold and the ghostly figure seared into his mind. He never returned to the gas station, even refusing to go near it during daylight hours. The experience left an indelible mark, a chilling reminder that even the most ordinary places can harbor dark and unsettling secrets. Chapter 3. The Bathroom Knock. Our final story takes us to the outskirts of Las Vegas, where the glittering lights of the Strip give way to desolate desert highways. Our submitter, let's call her Maria, was driving home from a late-night shift at a casino, her mind weary from the constant clanging of slot machines and the murmur of anxious gamblers. She stopped at a gas station, a lone beacon in the vast darkness. The fluorescent lights hummed, casting an eerie glow on the empty pumps and the desolate surroundings. Maria, feeling the familiar tug of unease that comes with being alone at night, quickly filled her tank and went inside to pay. The cashier, a tired-looking man with bloodshot eyes, barely acknowledged her as he rang up her purchase. As Maria turned to leave, she felt a sudden, urgent need to use the restroom. She hesitated for a moment, a flicker of unease passing through her. The restroom was located at the back of the store, down a dimly lit hallway, and something about it just felt off. But nature was calling and she couldn't hold it any longer. The hallway to the restroom was narrow and poorly lit, the air thick with the smell of stale bleach and something else, something vaguely metallic and unsettling. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting flickering shadows that danced along the walls. Maria hurried down the hallway, her footsteps echoing eerily in the silence. She reached the restroom door and pushed it open. The restroom was small and cramped, with a single flickering light bulb casting long shadows across the grimy walls. Maria quickly locked the door behind her, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that she wasn't alone. As she washed her hands, she heard it, a soft knock on the door. Tap, tap, tap. Her heart skipped a beat. "Hello?" she called out, her voice trembling slightly. There was no answer, only the sound of her own breathing, amplified in the small enclosed space. Maria dried her hands, her anxiety growing with each passing second. She unlocked the door and swung it open. The hallway was empty. She stepped out, her gaze scanning the shadows, but there was no one there. She could have sworn she'd heard a knock, clear as day. She hurried back to the main store, her unease growing into full-fledged fear. The cashier barely looked up as she approached the counter. "Did you see anyone come out of the restroom just now?" she asked, her voice breathless. The cashier shook his head slowly. "Nope," he mumbled, his eyes glued to the magazine in front of him. "Just you." Maria practically ran out of the gas station, her heart pounding in her chest. As she drove away, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that something unseen had followed her out of the restroom. She never stopped at that gas station again. The memory of the eerie knock in the empty hallway forever etched in her mind. If you ever find yourself alone at a gas station past midnight, Look around, double-check the doors, and never ever answer a knock you didn't expect. The night is full of terrors, lurking just beyond the edge of the light, waiting to claim those who wander too far from safety. Thanks for watching Unhinged Nightmares. New true horror stories every night. Like, subscribe, and tell us, what's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you late at night? Sleep tight, if you dare.